It's K-Drama Fanatics here, and welcome back to my channel. Episode 3 of When the Phone Rings takes us back a few minutes before the bombing. Saon was on the phone with Hee-ju, still posing as her kidnapper. In the meantime, the real kidnapper delivers a pizza to Saon's office. Only it is not a pizza, but a bomb, and it goes off as Saon is on the phone with Hee-ju. Doje informs him at the hospital after he wakes up that no one was seriously hurt in the bombing. However, Saon is not happy that the kidnapper has him in a tough spot. He can publicly come out and admit he is being threatened, so he sets a different plan in motion. He also checks the updates from Hee-ju's bodyguard to make sure she is safe. We circle back to where we left off in the last episode, with Saon arriving home and trying to look at Hee-ju's unique birthmark. However, Hee-ju stops him. He carries her to the bedroom and tries again. Hee-ju quickly thinks on her feet and asks him what he is looking for. Hee-ju's reaction and her questions lead Saon to believe she has no idea what he is trying to confirm. Hee-ju concerned about his injury and is relieved when he denies being hurt and walks away. Saon goes to his home office and receives a phone call from Doje, who tells him that the police believe the bombing is connected to the recent arson attacks in the area. However, Saon is certain that the kidnapper is pig riding on the real arsonist and orders Doje to run a separate investigation. Hee-ju eavesdrops and learns that Saon was the one who edited the conversation the media played in their clip. Later, Saon asks for her phone to check if has been hacked. Hee-ju panics when she realizes it is because of the phone she sent. She runs to her room and deletes the photo from the black phone. At the TV station, Sang-woo meets with the team to discuss his appearance on Yuri's show. The producer asks if there is a case that Sang-woo has never covered, and he says yes. He takes us back to when he was a kid living at Nuri Dream Center Orphanage. He narrates how he snuck out and met the chairman's son, who was staying at one of the family's properties near the area. According to Sang-woo, he and the young master got close and played every day. This was until one day, he came across something terrible. Unfortunately, Sang-woo leaves everyone hanging as his alarm goes off and he rushes out for his lunch date. Meanwhile, Saon goes through Hee-ju's phone and comes across her plans to meet with Sang-woo. Before leaving, he meets with Doje, who updates him on the bomb materials and says that they are nowhere close to identifying the kidnapper's voice. Saon is glad that Doje is dedicated to helping him. After that, he checks out and gets a message from Yuri. He invites Yuri to lunch at the same restaurant where Hee-ju and Sang-woo are meeting. Hee-ju is shocked when he shows up and casually interrupts her lunch with Sang-woo. He acts like it is a coincidence but never reveals she is his wife. In the end, the four have lunch together, and Saon uses this opportunity to grill Sang-woo as if he is a criminal. Thankfully, Sang-woo handles it like a pro, even though Hee-ju gets nervous. Yuri also helps by answering some of the questions as Sang-woo daringly takes care of Hee-ju. It is a wonder how Saon never choked from jealousy. Once Hee-ju excuses herself, Saon gets a call from Doje, who managed to get the culprit after he set another fire while the police were investigating the office bombing. After his call, Hee-ju confronts him and asks if he is suspect she is having an affair with Sang-woo. She comes to Sang-woo's defense, and Saon is pissed by Hee-ju's song of praise for Sang-woo. He starts questioning how well she knows him and admits that maybe he does not know her as well as he thinks. After the confrontation, Hee-ju gets a message from the center asking her to come, and Saon heads back to the table and asks for Sang-woo's business card before paying for the meal and leaving. At the center, Jin-yi excitedly shows Hee-ju the job application documents to become an interpreter at the president's office. Jin-yi is surprised when Hee-ju says she does not like the job and asks about a divorce. She proceeds to tell Jin-yi that her husband wants her dead. Jin-yi misunderstands and thinks it is the occasional passionate fight between the couple. Back at the office, Doje informs Saon that he is right about the arsonist. He is not the man they are looking for. The police failed to report the first bombing, and the arsonist never saw the imposter's face. Saon asks Doje to look into Sang-woo and is surprised when his assistant shows him Sang-woo's YouTube page. Sang-woo is a well-known psychiatrist who majors in psychology. He also does true crime shows and is a huge healthy living advocate. And Saon gets more jealous. Meanwhile, the kidnapper gives Hee-ju another scare when he hacks her car again. He asks her to call him and plays Song Yoon-ju's song, Call Me Now. After the scare, Hee-ju worriedly drives home, but she gets there at 9:55 p.m. and Saon arrives a few seconds later. As 10 o'clock is almost approaching, Hee-ju tries to leave, but Saon stops her and offers to go to the convenience store to get what she needs. Once he leaves, Hee-ju calls him as the kidnapper. This time, Saon asks what the kidnapper gains if he leaves Hee-ju. She is flustered and says that evidently Saon does not love his wife, so why would he keep her? Saon refuses to give up on Hee-ju and claims he will never let her go. He hangs up without waiting for the kidnapper's response. After returning from the store, he tells Hee-ju he won't divorce her and have his name dragged through the mud. Hee-ju is offended as she believes, which is why he is keeping her. He also brings up the job at the president's office and demands she does her best. She grabs his arm before he leaves and asks why it is important she stays by his side. She argues that the job will make her a public person and that might put him at risk. Still, Saon says that it is not important. He admits that he got offended because the kidnapper was right about them being strangers. Saon heads into her bedroom and gets into the bed. Hee-ju starts protesting, and he dares her to get into the bed if she can't resist him. Hee-ju reluctantly obliges. He then asks her to forget what happened when she was kidnapped and what he said. He promises to keep her safe since he is not sure if their house is safe anymore. He leaves after she falls asleep, and Hee-ju does not realize she is crying in her dream. The next day, since Hee-ju never called, the kidnapper resorts to a different approach. He visits Hee-ju's dad at the nursing home and briefly kidnaps him when he is left unattended. He then uses the man's phone to video call Hee-ju. Poor Hee-ju is shaken to her core. The kidnapper asks why Hee-ju is using the phone to threaten Saon. He is entertained when he learns that Hee-ju is using the phone to get a divorce. He excitedly says they are on the same side, but cautions her not to give up the fight. To scare Hee-ju more, he shows her four bloody teeth, and Hee-ju assumes they belong to her dad. After the call, she rushes to the nursing home and finds the police there. Thankfully, her dad was not harmed, but he heard the kidnapper telling Hee-ju to call Saon and continue threatening him. Hee-ju's dad keeps repeating the kidnapper's message, and this shakes her up even further. The police offer to drive her to the station to get her statement. On the way, the police radio starts acting up and Hee-ju gets car sick. The police officer stops to help her. Hee-ju quickly jumps out of the car and starts vomiting. She later starts crying as she reflects on how hard her life has been and how she has no one on her side. Suddenly, as if he is Prince Charming, Saon shows up with an entourage. He dismisses the officers after thanking them. He offers to go give a statement on Hee-ju's behalf. They ask how he is related to Hee-ju, and he proudly responds that she is his wife. Hee-ju is stunned by his reaction. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share.